Hi, welcome to Developing a Hybrid Environment with Cloud Services. This is our fourth and final webinar in our series of data protection and cloud events. And so as we get started today, I'll kick off. My name is James Tantrum. I'm the Director of Product Management here at Rogers Data Centers, and I'm really responsible for the management of our colocation, our cloud, managed and professional services. And our mission at Rogers Data Centers is really to ensure that Canadians are successful in their digital transformation, ensuring that they're getting the right cloud solution in order to ensure that their goals in terms of IT flexibility, agility, cost effectiveness, and control are obtained while always remaining secure. I'm joined today by Jennifer Trainor. Jennifer, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, James. My name is Jennifer Trainor. I'm the Director of Sales for Data Center and Cloud here at Rogers, and really excited to participate in the webinar today. So maybe I'll just kick it off with the agenda, James. Thanks for the intro. So I know everybody knows about all of the great benefits of cloud. So James spoke a little bit about agility. There's optimizing your IT resources and teams. There's the elasticity, the flexibility, and certainly everybody's aware that cloud is the central part of a digital transformation strategy. But what I think this presentation really focuses on, and what we're going to go through for the next hour, is really, based on some things that we hear from our customers at Rogers. So there's a couple of things that organizations need to consider when moving to the cloud. It's not that simple. And what we've learned from our customer base is that organizations are really looking for support on their journey to the cloud. They're looking for a partner. How do I get to the cloud? What is the migration strategy? I don't want to invest in retooling all of my IT teams to help me get to the cloud. I really need to be supported on this journey. The next thing that we hear about from our customers is really around, you have to pay attention to managing cost. That's one of the drivers and things that need to be top of mind when you're considering that move to the cloud. It certainly can save you money to move to the cloud, but can also be quite costly as well. So that's an important thing to keep on top of your agenda when you're considering moving to cloud. The next thing is really around flexibility. Organizations are looking to be flexible. They're looking for, that flexibility of, if I move to the cloud, I still need some workloads that integrate into my environments. They're looking for a cloud strategy that really helps to integrate into their current environment. They're also looking for a cloud that is simple. I need to be able to be onboarded simply, and I'm really not looking for anything complex. My IT team, I don't want to spend all the money to invest in transforming them to not only help me get to the cloud, but also manage my environment in the cloud. So those are some of the things that we're going to talk about. Really is it's feedback from our customers, and we're going to focus on how do we help you successfully get to the cloud and adopt that cloud strategy. We're going to talk about, how cloud plays an important role in a digital transformation strategy. And we know right now that digital transformation is a top priority for organizations today. Organizations are looking for new ways to leverage technology, to engage with their customers more effectively, to become more innovative. And cloud is the central piece to that. So we're going to touch on that. And then we're really going to show you how Rogers helps support our customers today and you in your cloud strategy. So everybody understands the outcomes of cloud, and one of the big outcomes of cloud is really that organizations do not want to spend a lot of time anymore managing their infrastructure. It takes up a lot of time. They really want to focus on that digital transformation strategy and have their IT teams focused on, how do I make our company better? How do we engage their customers differently? How do we be at the top of our game in the industry that we're in? Cloud is a big part of that. But organizations need to take a step back when they're making that leap to the cloud and make sure that they have a solid plan. And the plan needs to look at, things like, is the cloud strategy that I have in place meeting my compliance requirements? Is the cloud strategy that I'm working towards meet the data sovereignty requirements to keep my data within Canada? Does the, what is the cost associated with moving workloads into the cloud? Not every workload is better suited in the cloud. And that's where the hybrid IT strategy comes in. And these are things that we need to consider as we're on that journey to the cloud. So can cloud services transform a business? We know that they can. That's why cloud is in the news today. That's why everybody's moving to the cloud. And so, the whole concept of digital transformation around leveraging technology to do new innovative things, expand into new markets, remain competitive, improve the experience that I have with my customers, cloud really helps to transform all of that so it can deliver these great outcomes. But we have to be mindful of, is this cloud strategy that I have going to reduce my cost? Is putting that workload in this particular cloud going to improve my efficiencies, improve my cost, or improve my experience? And what we see without a clearly defined cloud strategy, workload by workload, we don't really know what the outcome is of that. And it's really important to remember that you evaluate those workloads, workload by workload, to see where it's better placed. Cloud is not a one-size-fits-all. The hyperscalers will tell you that everything should go in this environment, and that's not always the case. And James is going to walk you through why we see that's not the case now in the market. So it's really important to understand as a business what is motivating you to get to the cloud, or who is motivating you to get to the cloud.
Great, thanks, Jen. And I think it just serves as a great segue, this concept of one cloud not fitting every application need and business outcome. And what we thought we would start with today is a little bit of a readout in terms of what are some of the key technology and architectural trends that are driving strategy within the corporate data center over the next 12 to 18 months. And every year we do an informal survey. We really look across market research. We look at what's happening within our own IT organization here at Rogers. And of course, we look at what we see from our customer base. What are some of the key technology trends and challenges that they're looking to solve for? And for 2020, we really identified 4 key trends that sit within sort of the data center domain. The first is what we call Cloud Connect services. And Cloud Connect services are really the business need and the need to connect multiple diverse clouds together and to integrate them into the traditional corporate WAN environment. And when we think about networking, historically, we were very focused on connecting sites. Networks and the applications delivered over networks tended to exist in 1 or 2 core enterprise or organizational locations, a data center or a head office as an example. And the role of the WAN was really to ensure that applications could be delivered from those centralized sites to any number of branch sites across the network. And so a good example would be in the retail domain, where an ERP and a logistics application might sit in the corporate data center, and there is a well-defined need to connect, of course, all of the retail locations back to that centralized application. Of course, what we're seeing with really the rapid adoption of cloud technologies supporting all types of business functions and business applications, whether that is collaboration, web conferencing such as we're using today, cloud-based applications such as SaaS, Salesforce, and so on, and of course, your core cloud platforms such as AWS and Azure. Applications are very quickly moving from those traditional corporate data centers and are being distributed across a broad domain of data center and cloud providers. And so Cloud Connect services are really about essentially transforming that WAN paradigm from really the branch to headquarter or branch to data center connectivity to a branch to really cloud and cloud service connectivity domain. And what's becoming very important in the selection of your data center as well as your network provider is ensuring that you've got the capabilities to not just connect physical locations, but connect things, connect services, and connect clouds securely and with predictable performance into that WAN environment. The next trend really goes hand in hand with Cloud Connect services, and Jen mentioned this, was the need to really have access to multiple cloud technologies. And I think it goes without saying that one cloud provider is not going to be able to solve all of the really diverse and unique needs of a particular organization. And we're very much seeing a trend towards multi-cloud and hybrid IT, where businesses are acknowledging that, one, sort of the traditional data center and on-prem environments are going to exist for some time, that the sort of motion towards cloud is not something that's going to happen very quickly. And we're going to explore some of those reasons. And with that, traditional on-prem environments will need to coexist with cloud environments. But also we're seeing just continued growth and adoption of just multiple cloud and application platforms within the enterprise. But more importantly, the need to integrate all of those together and have them sort of coexist and interoperate with each other. So multi-cloud being that trend. The next trend, and we're very nascent in this domain, is the concept of what is being called MEC, or mobile edge computing. And mobile edge computing is really the notion of pushing cloud-based compute services, whether that's storage, whether it's compute, whether it's networking, whether it's applications, much, much closer to where the actual application consumer exists. And there's a number of things that are driving that. The first is, by nature, cloud has been very much centralized in terms of where the applications and where the compute infrastructure lives. And if we look at Canada as an example, our cloud services in Canada tend to be very concentrated actually in Quebec. And so what's great about that is cloud providers are leveraging really the power efficiency, the power rates that are offered in the Quebec region. Quebec has one of the lowest rates for power and electricity in North America. So many cloud providers have chosen to establish their data centers in that region. And of course, that's great if you're an application consumer in Eastern Canada. If you're sitting out in Western Canada, and particularly if you've got a need for data residency and data sovereignty, meaning you want your network, you want your application, you want your data to remain in Canada, what that means is any time that you're accessing that application that's hosted in the cloud, you're in fact having to go across the entire country to access those resources and perform those transactions. And so, that in itself is not necessarily bad, but what it does mean is that latency is introduced into that transaction. And a good rule of thumb, if you're concerned about latency, is there's about 10 milliseconds of latency introduced by the network per every 1,000 or so kilometers of distance that the network or the traffic has to propagate or travel. And so you can imagine coming from one coast of Canada to the other, 3,000-4,000 kilometers of fiber that's needed to be transmitted across or propagated across. So we're really looking at 30 to 40 milliseconds of delay in that transaction. And of course, now when we start to think about multi-cloud, where workloads and applications are in fact sitting across or distributed across multiple clouds, it's easy to envision scenarios where application latency is quickly reaching into the 100 plus milliseconds sort of domain. And that's when we really start to see an impact of latency. Edge computing is really about pushing all of those clouds much closer to the edge of the network to ensure that the data can be quickly accessed and can be computed and analyzed much more quickly and without concerns for latency. And so this is a technology trend that is particularly being driven by 5G. And of course, the opportunity that 5G creates for many businesses is the ubiquitous availability of broadband, but high performance broadband, meaning network access over the wireless networks is increasingly going to approach the performance that we've seen in traditional fiber and wireline domains. And then the final driver, and Jen really spoke to this, is that from an IT perspective and from a cloud perspective, the expectation is that investments in IT and investments in cloud are certainly helping support the enterprise really obtain and achieve their digital transformation objectives. And so when we think of digital transformation, the cloud and the adoption of cloud technologies, as well as 5G and wireless, are really seen by the industry as key enabling technologies for digital transformation. These are technologies that are going to allow businesses to be obviously more agile and quick to respond and deliver new products to market. Along with that, being more sort of innovative and more customer oriented, and be able to deliver, those really unique and differentiated digital experiences to customers. And of course, as we become more digital, enterprises are looking to become much more efficient in the way that they manage their back office, and really allow them to focus those business resources on their customers and solving and serving their customers. So, with those trends sort of defined, what we're also seeing in the market is, of course, this rapid trend and adoption towards multi-cloud or hybrid cloud. And the number one concern, I think, and issue that customers really bring to Rogers in terms of their cloud challenge has a lot to do around governance of the cloud, and specifically in a world that is multi-cloud, in a world where IT developers and IT administrators can essentially spin up and scale out infrastructure with a few mouse clicks, that the cloud is sort of sprawling, if you will. It's very difficult to keep really a lens or a sense in terms of where is cloud growing from a consumption perspective in the enterprise, and more importantly, how do you control some of the costs associated with the cloud? One, as mentioned, it's very easy to scale out and add capacity. Of course, that comes at cost. The other challenge in the cloud domain is really the unexpected charges or the lack of control when it comes to costs, particularly from a network perspective. And so many organizations are reporting that it's becoming increasingly challenged to just predict and forecast how much their cloud bills are going to be.
Looks like we lost James' audio.
You guys am I back here?
Yep, you're back. You're back. Oh, he's not. You're not back, James. There you go. Seems like you're back now.
Perfect. And so what we recommend to organizations is to begin by establishing that cloud governance within their organization. And so as part of that cloud adoption and cloud success story, ensure that there is a team that is responsible for that governance. And with that governance, really ensure that clear budgeting is set in place, clear controls are established in terms of how to control and manage growth and expansion of capacity, and ultimately help and develop a roadmap for cloud services adoption, going through really the list of legacy applications and workloads that exist within a business, going through that important step of rationalization, understanding what workloads are critical to the business, and perhaps those that are less critical, and looking to lifecycle and sunset those less critical workloads. For the ones that remain, that are important to the business, then really start to understand and map out what's important to that particular workload or application from a cloud perspective. Does that workload benefit from the elasticity and scale of cloud? Does it benefit from essentially the flexibility of cloud from a platform and application perspective? Or perhaps that application, for reasons of legacy or reasons of criticality or compliance that Jen spoke to, perhaps that application is best suited to remain on-prem or in a co-location environment. And so part of solving for cloud sprawl is really establishing that governance and ensuring that really starting to map out a good plan and a good roadmap for how and when and where applications will be migrated. And so from an IT outcome perspective, it's Roger's belief that multi-cloud will be the end state for most organizations. And what that means is when we look at a modern enterprise, and if we were to look at their distribution of applications and workloads, what we'd actually find is a distribution of applications across multiple consumption models. And what we would see is still a number of applications that are living either on-prem or on within co-location environments. These are workloads that require the predictable sort of control and certainty that those consumption models provide. We'd see a number of workloads that sit within various cloud consumption models, whether that's a private cloud or a public cloud. And really that placement being dependent on the need for flexibility and elasticity and scale for those applications. Something that's becoming increasingly, I think, apparent to many organizations is that no cloud strategy is really complete without a robust data protection strategy. And something that we've talked about in the last 3 or so sessions is that a robust cloud strategy incorporates data protection. And the reason for that is many organizations have assumed that cloud includes really backup and protection of data. And it's important for organizations to acknowledge that cloud is generally defined in what's called a shared responsibility model. And what that shared responsibility model says, and it's provided to the customer from that cloud provider, is that the cloud provider is ultimately accountable for the systems and platforms and servers that deliver the cloud to that end customer. But the customer is responsible for their data, meaning the security of their data and the protection and backup of that data is the customer's to own. And so no cloud and sort of digital transformation story is complete without that data protection sort of layer. And so when we consider what a hybrid cloud sort of environment looks like, it really is the consolidation of traditional on-prem, cloud, as well as data protection service that can span both of those domains. And there are a couple of things that we believe help in that transition and realization of that hybrid cloud end state. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But being able to leverage both the professional and managed services of your cloud and of your data center provider really help in that cloud and in that digital transformation story, because they allow you as an organization to keep the focus on the transformation, keep the focus on the business, as opposed to on the technology and on the applications. And so these are important elements to really achieving that hybrid cloud outcome. So Jen, I'll maybe bring you back in here. I think one of the things that in that hybrid journey has become very apparent is from a Canadian perspective, there's really 4 key attributes that we see Canadians businesses really need to address or realize in order to be successful in their cloud journey. And maybe you could share what those are.
Sure. And I think I alluded to what most of our customers are talking about when they're talking to us about, how do I get to the cloud and what things do I need to consider? I guess sort of an output of that really is that, one of the things that we've learned from our customers is that the journey to the cloud, it's not a one size fits all. Every organization is different. And I believe that what we bring to the table is that we truly partner with an organization and create that bespoke strategy. And as James sort of alluded to, the hybrid IT story or strategy that's dominating the market needs to have certain amenities or pieces to it to complete it. And so co-location is part of that. Data protection is part of that. And a cloud solution is part of that. And that's what we bring to the table, that whole hybrid IT approach, which I think is really unique in the market, considering, the hyperscalers or public cloud providers. They don't have those amenities, and they do not have the ability to provide, the integration of all of those things and make it really simple. And so what we see is that Canadians are looking for something that's simple and easy to understand. They're looking for that partner to help them on that journey, and they don't want that complexity of, how am I going to manage this thing? How am I going to get to the cloud? And I think that's where, that's one of the things that companies that we talk to are talking about. The transparent pricing. James, you mentioned the unexpected costs. And what we hear from our customers is really, if I've gone into a public cloud provider, I just don't know how to manage what my bill is going to be every month. I maybe am not, hands-on, and I don't have the IT skills and infrastructure to manage what's happening within that cloud. So I'm incurring a lot of costs. It's also very costly to move data out of a cloud. And that's one thing that I think we solve for, is that because of our hybrid IT approach, we do not charge for moving data in and out of the cloud. So that's another advantage. And something that's really resonating with organizations that we're talking about. I think the biggest thing that customers talk to us about today is about, how do I get there? And that's really all around the support. They're looking to have that partner to help them understand, where is this workload better suited? Is it in a server inside of one of our data centers? And then, where is this workload suited? Is it in our virtual private cloud? And James will talk about the different cloud options that we have. But that hybrid IT environment, we help customers sort of get to that end state. And that's really important to organizations today. And then I think the fact, and James, you mentioned the professional and managed services. Customers don't want to manage that environment. And what we're seeing is, hey, you know what? Well, you'll help us get everything into the cloud. And then, can you please manage this for us? So we take the management of that cloud solution as well for a customer. And really, those are the sort of the four key things that a lot of organizations that we talk to on a daily basis are really concerned about.
Yeah, I think organizations understand the need to get there. I think in many cases, cloud has sort of promised these outcomes, but they're not simply realized. I think they are important. They're important to sort of highlight, and that if you are straying too far, if it's becoming too complex, if you don't understand how the pricing is actually working, if there's no one that you can really call to help, not just obviously in terms of technical support, but in terms of really the business and the billing aspects of this, that journey may not be successful. And that for many businesses, a partner that will support that journey is the best way to approach this.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where it becomes important to have that partner sort of evaluate. There's no sense putting in a workload into the cloud if it's going to end up costing you more to be there, or there's no benefit. So it's really important to understand what outcomes that an organization is looking for by workload, and as part of their overall business priorities as well.
That's a great point, Jen. I think just getting to the cloud is not a win. It ultimately is achieving those metrics of digital transformation and being able to show that you are innovating faster and delivering better customer experiences. It's a great point. So perhaps we'll talk a little bit about the products and services that Rogers Data Centers really provides to help customers on that journey. And I think, as mentioned, we do believe intrinsically that a single cloud is not the right solution, that one size won't fit all. And so within our portfolio, there are really three core infrastructure solutions that we bring to the market. The first is, of course, co-location. Co-location is really designed for businesses that want to maintain absolute control over their IT infrastructure, meaning I need to be able to specify really right down to the individual server and storage appliance or SAN, exactly what the characteristics of the technology look like from a performance and from a capacity standpoint. Of course, co-location is a model where the enterprise and the organization owns and operates that infrastructure. And so it is, really, businesses want to maintain a capital profile or capital budget around IT, co-location is ultimately the way to achieve that. What co-location as a service really delivers to the customer is it provides the home for that infrastructure to live that is incredibly secure, really has the SLAs from an uptime perspective to be able to deliver on 100% uptime SLAs from an application perspective. And also, co-location facilities are generally richly connected to the, meaning if the co-location facility connected to the hyperscaler clouds. The next, consumption model or infrastructure service that Rogers provides is what we call private cloud. And private cloud is really, it's one step away from co-location, meaning private cloud delivers to an organization dedicated infrastructure, meaning it's not shared, and it allows the organization to maintain a pretty significant level of control around the specifications and characteristics of that cloud, meaning the service is delivered in a way that is relatively bespoke or personalized in terms of the capacity of the storage, the performance of the compute, and the characteristics of the network. The other great thing about private cloud is generally it allows organizations that have their own in-house IT skills to maintain and leverage those existing skills as they move to a cloud consumption model. So a lot of the technologies from a compute and also from a virtualization perspective that we use in our private cloud, which are on the compute sort of an IT stack, is a FlexPod reference architecture. So based on a well-established enterprise architecture that includes Cisco server infrastructure and NetApp storage, and at the virtualization layer includes VMware. These are technologies that generally are well understood and most enterprises are familiar with. So it allows a transition to cloud with very little retooling and changing of existing processes and policies. The next step in our cloud is certainly what we call virtual private cloud. And again, it's one step further towards the hyperscaler and public cloud model, where virtual private cloud is a shared or multi-tenant platform, meaning that you're able to get the elasticity and the sort of scale and economies of the public cloud. But we deliver our cloud in a way that still provides some degree of control and visibility to the technology stack, meaning our virtual private cloud is delivered within a data center that a client can be co-located in or actually have their private cloud. So there's a degree of familiarity with where that cloud is hosted. And then the technology stack that we use very closely mirrors the private cloud in terms of it looking and feeling a lot like what we would typically find within the enterprise. Do provide a suite of data protection services. We've spent a number of sessions going in depth in terms of what those capabilities look like. But really, the concept here is to be able to provide data protection to infrastructure no matter where it's located, whether that's in the traditional on-prem environment, whether it's in our data center, or even in a third-party data center or cloud. We can leverage our data protection services to ensure that organizations can recover from disasters, whether that's malware, ransomware, infrastructure failure, and so forth. And then we do bring to the table, and again, back to that fully supported journey that Jennifer spoke about, we do have managed and professional services that ensure that this journey is fully guided and supported, meaning it's not something that you're having to undertake yourself, that there is a team of technology professionals to really help ensure success on the initial onboarding, but also longer term in terms of managing that infrastructure from a day-to-day perspective. So we'll talk a little bit about Rogers from a capabilities standpoint. Of course, Rogers is best known for our wireless capabilities across the country and in Eastern Canada. We're well known for our cable footprint. In the data center space, we actually are we're actually the only national integrated co-location and network operator in the country. And so we do operate 12 data centers coast to coast, more than 200,000 square feet of actual data center space or white space. We do have the largest Tier 3 certified data center fleet in the country. And just to provide a little bit of context about what that means, our data centers are independently verified by the Uptime Institute, who is the global authority on data center sort of design and build practices. The Tier 3 certification really means that our data centers have been validated to provide that 100% uptime capability. And of course, being an integrated owner and network operator ensures that all of these data centers are well connected, not just to each other, but to Canadian businesses and also the hyperscaler clouds across the country. So it's a very unique set of capabilities that we have within this business. Obviously, the co-location, the cloud services, and the network services to provide that interoperability between all of the different applications and workloads. We are well recognized in this domain as well. A couple of years ago, IDC did a really assessment of data center operators across the country. Rogers is recognized as a leader. I think very important to call out here that leadership position is a result of really what our customers have to say about us and the opinion that our customers have in terms of our capabilities. And so, really with a degree of pride, Rogers sitting next to the likes of IBM in terms of our capabilities in this domain. Of course, Bell has since decided to exit this part of their business. If anyone was following, the news, actually as of today, Bell has concluded the transaction of their data centers to Equinix, so they are no longer a participant in the data center market. So perhaps Jen, have you come back in? Just in summary here, sort of, how do we knit all of this together? What are sort of the intrinsic benefits of working with Rogers on a data center and cloud strategy?
So, really, I think it's we've talked a lot about what's important to our customers and what we're hearing is important to them on their journey to the cloud. And I think, when we look at why Rogers and why partner with us, it really goes down to, again, cost, because we know that that's one issue that's experienced in public clouds. The ability to scale up or down and easily with predictable monthly costs. I think that's one of the reasons why customers choose us. We do have that investment up front where we have a specialist and architect team that spends a lot of time working and partnering with an organization to make sure that we size the cloud environment properly and ensure that whatever outcomes you're looking for will be achieved by moving to the cloud. In terms of co-location, we're very flexible in terms of how we support our customers that are within our co-location facilities. Again, very much similar to how we support cloud, is really that bespoke solution for a customer, all the way down to customizing specific suites, cabinets, switches. It's very much a bespoke solution on the colo side as well. The expertise that we bring to the table, James, you just talked about the IDC, where we place with IDC, and interestingly enough, with the acquisition of Bell's data centers by Equinix, which was in the news a few months ago, that it potentially will be happening and finalized now, really leaves sort of, two players in Canada. And we are the largest Tier 3 provider. So we have the largest Tier 3 certified data centers. That means a third party comes in and makes sure that the building specifications and how we operate those data centers are certified by a third party to guarantee sort of their security and reliability. So definitely have a very resonating place in the market. The fact that we have 12 data centers across the country, We can put any private clouds in any one of those data centers. We've got our virtual private clouds in 3 data centers now. So really that, when you talk about edge compute and needing to have the cloud closer to the edge, I think we play an important role in that, and the expertise that we bring to the table with that certainly is a compelling reason why a customer would choose Rogers. The reliability and security. So again, talking about the tier 3 certification and that guaranteed 100% uptime. That's really important to ensure that your cloud is housed in a data center that's guaranteed up 100% of the time. And I think one of the big things that I hear from customers and why they would choose us is really that whole piece around data sovereignty. And that becomes really important to those Bell customers as well. So what does that mean when an American company owns now all of those data centers and the customers that are within those data centers? So I think the data sovereignty story is definitely a reason why somebody would choose to either co-locate with us or choose a cloud solution with us, because that data operates under Canadian laws and Canadian jurisdiction. So that's very important and a compelling reason for a lot of organizations to choose Rogers. And then finally, really, I think what I'm the most proud of, and that I hear, from customers that have purchased cloud solutions from us in the past, not only were all of these other reasons that I just spoke about compelling, the big reason why they chose Rogers in the end is really that end-to-end management. So I'm going to help you on every step of the way to this journey. James, you mentioned the professional service and managed services teams. That's huge for customers when, they don't want to have to invest in IT resources to get there, or they may not even be sure how to get there. So the support that we provide from that perspective is definitely a compelling reason why we see customers choose us time and time again. And then I think it's the fact that we're flexible. So you can come in and put everything in our data centers, and we can work with you to help you migrate to a cloud over time. Because we have all of those amenities that really develop and complete that hybrid IT story, that's a really compelling reason why somebody would choose to move their infrastructure with us, because we are so flexible and we've got the amenities to support that journey. And then finally, it's the dedicated account support. So when you're a customer of Rogers, with any one of our products, you do have a dedicated account manager. And that's really important when you think of the difference of that with a public cloud provider. If you would like to go into a cloud provider, unless you're one of the big Fortune 50, Fortune 500 companies, you're left on your own, and you're left to figure out are you adequately secure? Do you have enough protection to ensure that you're protected against cybersecurity threats? All of that is on you. And if there's an issue, you have to figure out how to support that yourself, whereas we provide that support to our customers. And I think, all of these reasons combined really gives us a really solid value proposition and reason why customers choose us.
Great, thanks, Jen. And I'm just going to really wrap things up, but I think in conclusion, as we think about cloud, we sort of acknowledge now, I think, the steps and the conditions for success. Really the prominent consumption models that Rogers provides, and really when to consider them. Private cloud. Consider private cloud, where ultimately you've got very strong compliance needs that need to be satisfied in terms of security, and the concept of keeping your cloud pretty much isolated and dedicated to yourself, not looking to share resources and components with other tenants. Consider private cloud, where that tremendous amount of control is desired on the actual IT layer. So a need to specify really almost at an architectural level what's required in that cloud environment. And then the final consideration, I would say, for private cloud is really cost predictability. If you want to ensure that you've got a very consistent and predictable sort of long-term budget associated with your cloud, private cloud is the best approach. And generally, private cloud is best suited to enterprise applications that tend to be pretty consistent and steady in terms of their growth and performance needs. Applications that don't tend to have huge spikes in terms of capacity requirements and so on. Private cloud is really where we see a lot of customers placing those types of workloads. And in many cases, we see organizations realizing savings 30 to 40% over hyperscaler clouds, which is obviously a very important consideration. The other model to consider with Rogers is virtual private cloud. Virtual private cloud is really sort of the next step towards public cloud. From a consideration perspective, I think virtual private cloud makes a ton of sense for organizations that are concerned or worried about the complexity of the hyperscalers in the public cloud. Virtual private cloud is really built with a lens on efficiency and simplicity from an administrative standpoint. It does give a degree, again, of control, whether that's the infrastructure stack or costs. Jen, I think you mentioned along the way that Rogers never charges for consumption and utilization of resources, meaning your bill month to month is based on your reservation of resources. And that means it's easy to budget and predict what the spend will be in a virtual private cloud model, as opposed to a public cloud model where actual consumption and transactions tend to be metered and billed for. So a very important component of our solution. And then I'll just really wrap up and ensure we've got a few minutes for Q&A. We're really pleased to provide a number of offers and promotions to you as attendees to this series of events. The first is really the opportunity to trial the virtual private cloud. And so this is an opportunity to really get familiar and experience the simplicity and the predictability of our cloud offering and do so in a way that is risk-free. On the data protection side, we're also really pleased to help provide a 50% off promotion on both our Veeam Cloud Connect, so our cloud-based backup service, as well as 50% off our Zerto disaster recovery as a service platform, which is really a cloud-based capability that ensures workloads, no matter where they are, whether they're on at your premise or in a data center, in the event of any kind of infrastructure failure, can be quickly recovered in one of the Rogers data centers. So these are the three offers that I'd like to leave you with today. I think these have just become so important to Canadian businesses as we evolve through the COVID scenario, and just the need to obviously adopt digital technologies to mitigate some of the health and safety risks of sending employees into data centers and into the office, but also just the constraints that we're seeing in the supply chain and in the technical services world in terms of being able to get technicians out into the field and deploying and managing IT environments. These are great options to mitigate some of those headwinds. So with that, I'd like to introduce Samiti. Samiti is our moderator for today's Q&A session. Are there any questions on the bridge, Samiti?
Yes, thank you, James and Jennifer. We have a few questions here. Our first question is, when building a cloud strategy, is there a methodology to understand where and when workloads should be placed?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I can start with that, and I think Jen and I have really provided a bit of a framework, but I think really success in terms of placement is dependent on first understanding what the desired outcome is for the business and for those applications. And it's really not until that's defined and described that we can actually do that optimization and figure out what the right cloud is in order to meet that workload's needs. And just some of the attributes that we typically will consider as we help customers in that sort of placement journey and selection is, one, certainly the compliance domain. So are there unique requirements around data sovereignty and data jurisdiction? Are there needs for PCI and SOC and ISO requirements and so forth? And that will typically frame up a possibility of end states. And from there, it really is understanding at a workload level what's most important to that application from a success standpoint. Is elasticity and scale critical? Meaning, does that workload need to very quickly go from serving a few hundred or a few dozen customers to thousands or hundreds of thousands? Or is that application by nature generally steady state, meaning it's the same 100 or so users that are consuming each and every month? So we look at that. We obviously look at, from a cost perspective, and a longevity of that application. Is that application expected to be sunsetted or grandfathered relatively soon, or will it be around for some time? That will help in that discussion. And then I would say, lastly, is there a requirement to very much define the actual technology stack that that application runs on? And a large number of legacy applications are very specific in terms of what IT stack the vendor will support or that application can even run on. So those are some of the core considerations that I would look like, sort of a mix of business and technology. I don't know, Jen, is there anything else that you'd add to that, sort of from a business lens perspective?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. It's really, I can't stress enough in that whole evaluation of when we're going to the cloud, where organizations get in trouble is by not taking the time to figure out workload by workload if there's going to be a benefit to doing that, and thinking about the cost as well. So I think you've said it well.
Okay. We have one more question around our data center locations. The question is, what locations do you have for your cloud offering in Canada? And if you could confirm the 3 locations for the private cloud.
Yeah, great question. So I think we spoke about the two different consumption models, private cloud and virtual private cloud. Private cloud can really be deployed in any of those 12 data centers across Canada. And the reason for that is it is bespoke infrastructure. And so part of the solution is really optimizing and choosing the right location for the customer. Our virtual private cloud, which is our multi-tenant platform, sits in our Calgary data center, Calgary 3, so one of our 3 facilities in Calgary specifically. It also is in Toronto in our Markham data center. And we're very actually happy to share that we've just launched the capability of VPC in Ottawa, in our Ottawa data center in the West End in Canada, and also in our Halifax data center on the East Coast. And so what's great about that breadth of facilities is VPC is really becoming a home for those workloads that are very latency sensitive and have a need to be very close to where those application consumers are. And so we're really covering Canada in its geographical entirety through those four discrete locations, so Calgary, Toronto, Ottawa, and Halifax. So I hope that answers the question. Great. Okay. I'd like to thank everyone for their attendance today and participation in the webinar series. As mentioned, this was our 4th and final, but I'm sure we will have another set of webinars coming up that we obviously will share with you as those come to fruition. So with that, thank you, Jen, as well. Really appreciate your support today.
Thank you. Thanks for joining, everyone.